Tonight, thousands queue in Edinburgh to pay their respects to the late Queen. Also tonight, signs in Ukraine that the tide may be turning against Russia. Tributes for renowned Australian actor and Indigenous elder Uncle Jack Charles, who's died at the age of 79. And a star Raiders forward recognised as sudden death semi-finals loom. Good evening, Dan Borscher with ABC News. Just hours from now, Scotland will bid its final farewell to Queen Elizabeth when her body is taken back to London. These are live pictures from St Giles Cathedral in Edinburgh. Thousands of mourners have been queuing for hours to pay their last respects to the late sovereign. They waited through the night in the Scottish capital before slowly filing past the Queen's coffin. From Edinburgh, here's Europe correspondent Nick Dole.
In the shadow of Elizabeth Tower, the home of Big Ben, the new king was finding his feet. Charles III and the Queen consort Camilla side by side. The monarch clearly moved as the nation's politicians found their voices. As he touched down in Edinburgh to join his family, the guns rang out over the city. And the king took time to meet some of the many well-wishers.
Thank you so much for your kind thoughts.
He basically said to us that he had been dreading the moment coming and he was trying to keep everything going.
After lying at rest in Holyrood House, the next stage of the Queen's journey began. Charles and his siblings, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, escorted their mother's coffin up the Royal Mile. The royal family is proud of its traditions, but this must surely be one of the toughest duties to perform. 4 children facing their own private grief in full public view as they lead the nation in mourning.
It was quite strange just thinking someone's just lost their mother and all these people now watch you as you walk behind her coffin up the church.
As momentous an occasion as this is, and as important as I'm sure it is for King Charles, he really hasn't had a chance to grieve yet.
Thousands crammed into the city centre, but as the coffin passed, they fell silent, except for one.
Andrew, you're a settled man!
A protester calling out to the Duke of York was dragged to the ground by members of the public. The procession arrived at St Giles's Cathedral, where the Queen is now lying in state. Former soldier George Higgins waited 10 hours to be let inside.
It's worth it because Her Majesty the Queen gave us 70 years of service to this country, to us, the people, and to the Commonwealth. And the least I can do is give her a couple of days of my time, just to say farewell.
With their heads bowed, the late monarch's children kept watch over their mother's coffin. The ancient crown of Scotland's been lifted from her head, and the weight of responsibility now falls on her son's shoulders. Nick Dole, ABC News, Edinburgh.
And Europe correspondent Nick Dole is at St Giles Cathedral. Nick, the Scottish leg of this farewell is coming to a close tonight. What's ahead?
Well, Dan, there's just a matter of hours left for people to come here to pay their respects to the Queen, and people have been lining up around the block overnight and into the morning so they don't miss out on their chance. They only get a matter of minutes inside, a moment of quiet contemplation really, but they say it's really important to have that time to farewell the Queen. In the coming hours, the Queen's body will be taken to Edinburgh Airport and flown on a Royal Air Force flight down to London. From there, it will be taken to Buckingham Palace, where it'll be met by King Charles and the Queen consort Camilla, as well as other senior royals. The King's Guard will receive the coffin and take it inside the palace walls. And there, Queen Elizabeth will spend her final night inside Buckingham Palace. On Wednesday, the procession makes its way down the Mall, down Whitehall, past Elizabeth Tower and Big Ben, and into Westminster Hall, where it will lie in state for 4 days. And there, Dan, we're expecting to see potentially hundreds of thousands of people file past to bid the Queen farewell.
Nick Dole reporting from Edinburgh. 10 everyday Australians will attend next week's funeral for the Queen in London alongside the Prime Minister and Governor-General. They include Canberran Senior Australian of the Year Val Dempsey and others who have gone above and beyond for their communities.
A warm reception for a solemn occasion. The Lodge playing host to Commonwealth dignitaries for a memorial reception.
It was an opportunity for Commonwealth nations to express together our condolences.
The Prime Minister to attend the Queen's official funeral in London, alongside the Governor-General, and at the request of the Palace, 10 everyday Australians.
The Australians who have been invited, I think, embody an extraordinary contribution to our nation.
And then on my right,
including Dylan Alcott, the last Australian of the year to meet the Queen via Zoom.
Hi, Your Majesty. Thanks for coming to chat to us. This is awesome.
For some, it's not the first time they're brushing shoulders with royalty.
Absolute pleasure to know Her Majesty, and I've been lucky enough to train a horse for Her Majesty.
For others, it was an unexpected honour.
Of course, I couldn't believe it. I have to ask for a second time.
To be asked to represent Australia and Australians is truly quite humbling and really so wonderful.
The whole bush was my playground.
For Nungawarmity woman, Dr Miriam Rose Ungamere Bowman, it's a complex visit.
I feel comfortable now in being asked to go. I was unsure.
4 Victoria Cross recipients have been invited, including Ben Roberts-Smith. He's currently waiting on the outcome of a high-profile defamation case against 9 newspapers. The Prime Minister has confirmed he will meet with the new King while in London, and he's also hoping to find time for several bilateral meetings with some of Australia's key diplomatic allies. Dana Morse, ABC News, Canberra.
Ukraine's counter-offensive is gathering momentum as its troops retake more territory from Russian control. The biggest gains have been in the east, where Ukrainian forces have driven Russian troops out of most of the Kharkiv region and back behind the border. But Russia still holds about a fifth of the country, and the retreating troops are leaving deadly traps.
It may look like a harmless piece of plastic, but this butterfly mine can maim or kill. As Ukrainian forces liberate more towns from Russian control, they inherit what's left behind, from weapon stockpiles to hidden traps. In this village near the Russian border, once home to 1,200 people, the job ahead for deminers is huge.
I think it will take up to a month to completely clear the village.
Ukraine says they've recaptured 6,000 square kilometres of territory from Russian forces in under 2 weeks, a blitz that has surprised even the Ukrainians themselves.
We met them with tears in our eyes. We could not imagine that they would come so unexpectedly, but we've been waiting for them almost half a year, and we are so happy.
Ukraine says Russia is seeking revenge for the counter-offensive by shelling major infrastructure like this power station in Kharkiv, bringing the city metro to a halt and leaving residents without power.
Hundreds and thousands of Ukrainians found themselves in the dark, without electricity, houses, hospitals, schools. This is a sign of the desperation of those who contrived this war.
Shelling has forced the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station to be shut down. The United Nations Atomic Energy Agency says it's talking to both Russia and Ukraine about urgently establishing a safety zone around the plant to avoid disaster. While Ukraine now controls much of the Kharkiv region, the shelling in the city hasn't stopped. And it's civilians who are paying the ultimate price. Steve Kinane, ABC News.
The Bureau of Meteorology has officially declared a third consecutive La Niña, indicating more wet weather is likely on the way for the north and east of the country. After much speculation, the Bureau announced the current weather pattern is indeed another La Nina. It doesn't guarantee huge floods this summer, but with catchments already waterlogged, it won't take much for creeks and rivers to rise again. Emergency services and local authorities are urging communities to be prepared for the possibility of flooding. Sydney's Star Casino has been found unfit to hold a licence by an independent inquiry. The New South Wales regulator says Star allowed money laundering and organised crime to infiltrate the casino. It's labelled the company's arrogance breathtaking.
Clear and obvious money laundering and terrorism financing risks were ignored by the Star's management for years.
The institutional arrogance of this company has been breathtaking, and their willingness to take risks in pursuing financial goals has been appalling.
A report from the inquiry led by Adam Bell SC found Star allowed organised crime to infiltrate the Sydney casino. It also found the company hadn't been transparent with the state's Independent Casino Commission. The Star treated the authority with disdain as an impediment to be worked around.
The submissions made by a number of individuals from the Star at the commencement of the Star inquiry have, by the end of the inquiry, proved to be completely false and an attempt to mislead Mr Bell.
Despite all that, no criminal charges are being publicly laid against individuals. The company has 14 days to respond before the Commission decides its fate.
We'd be in jail for 10 to 15 years. This is utter hypocrisy. The fact that there's no one being criminally charged. A total double standard.
The state government is defending its regulation of the industry.
We are in a position now to hold this organisation, this company, to account.
The state government gets hundreds of millions of dollars in tax revenue from the Star Casino each year. The Commission says at minimum there needs to be a major overhaul of the Star's management, but it does have powers to revoke its licence. Under new laws, the Star could face a fine of up to $100 million. Rani Hayman, ABC News, Sydney.
The image of the Queen has been imprinted on Australian coins since her coronation in 1953. Now the Royal Australian Mint will begin the process of portraying King Charles III on the nation's currency.
Be prepared, folks, when the coins begin to mix on.
From pounds, shillings and pence to dollars and decimalisation, the Queen has been on our cash for 70 years. Billions of coins. 6 different effigies of a monarch through the decades. But soon a king's head will feature on Australian coins.
When we receive an effigy that's been endorsed by Buckingham Palace from the Royal Mint, we will go through a period of modifying the design to match our manufacturing processes.
Existing currency will remain current for years to come, and when the new legal tender does arrive, the King will face the opposite way to his mother. Those first coins are more likely to be collected than cashed in.
I can imagine that they will be very valuable when they do come out. Very much sought after, I should say. People seem very keen to grab their piece of history.
Collectible, but not available just yet.
Sometime in 2023, Australians should expect to see a king on Australian coins.
There are 15 billion coins out there at the moment. We make about 110 to 150 million coins a year.
Tradition and protocol dictate that coins must change. As for the $5 note, don't count on an image of Charles III.
I understand that the decision to include the Queen's face in the $5 note was about her personally rather than about her status as a monarch, so that transition isn't automatic.
No new coins with the Queen's portrait will be minted after next year. From then, cash will be king. James Viver, ABC News, Canberra.
Actor, author and respected Aboriginal elder Uncle Jack Charles is being celebrated as the father of Indigenous theatre after he died this morning, aged 79. The Stolen Generations survivor used the stage to share painful and personal truths about the brutal impact of government policies on his community. Uncle Jack's family has given us permission to use his name and image.
Why do you love me? Oh, yeah.
Uncle Jack Charles found fame as an actor, but to Indigenous Australians he was so much more. His first major role was in a film that transformed Australian cinema.
Christ, don't leave! Don't want him feral mucking around with me!
He was affectionately known as the father of Indigenous theatre, and his love for the stage and performing arts never left him.
Your black skin soft as velvet shine.
I've never encountered a human being who is so open, so giving, so relentlessly charged in his urgency and desire to bring about great change.
As a child, the Bunwarang, Jajawarang, Woiwarang and Yorta Yorta senior elder endured physical and sexual abuse in state institutions. He was taken from his family at just 4 months old, a painful trauma he would carry forever. Today, his family remembered him as a force for truth-telling and bravery.
All I can say is what a voice, what a man, what an uncle. I love you, Uncle Jack.
Yep, love you, brother. You've done well.
Throughout his life, he battled addiction and crime. He was jailed more than 20 times. As for Uncle Jack, he believed it only made him stronger.
I'm a beacon, you know, a black light, if you will, and I am showing the way.
What a tough life. Someone taken from his mum, part of the stolen generations, and someone who came through that to be a person of hope.
This monument honours members of the stolen generation of which Uncle Jack was a voice for justice. So too was his friend, another dearly departed Indigenous leader, Uncle Archie Roach. 2 First Nations giants gone too soon.
Up to the sky.
Jetta Costa, ABC News.
Later this hour, the first television interview with the Queen's former private secretary, Samantha Cohen.
She was feisty. She was wonderfully feisty. She would drive very fast at Balmoral on those private roads. She would be incredibly funny. And then she also had a great sense of the ridiculous. She would see that the whole thing was quite silly and ridiculous, and she loved that.
A group of lawyers is calling on the federal government to provide better protections for migrant workers. They say they're more likely to be exploited because of language barriers and limited knowledge of their employment rights. And a warning, this report contains distressing details.
Lisa came to Australia in search of a new life, but she hasn't had the best start.
I have worked in the place that don't give the superannuation, underpaid, work overtime.
Lisa took up a skilled sponsorship as a massage therapist, where she claims she experienced sexual harassment. For legal reasons, we've changed her name.
He pushed me against the wall and he asking for sex. Like, can we go and have sex? You don't need to tell anyone. And it's quite difficult to come out when you were in that position because you feel terrified and you feel lonely.
Migrants make up about 20% of disputes settled by the Fair Work Ombudsman each year. But this only covers wage disputes and not, for example, sexual harassment claims. And all complaints are known to be underreported.
Most migrant workers, including skilled migrant workers, don't come forward for fear of losing their visa or other repercussions, so the exploitation stays hidden.
18 grassroots legal centres have written a letter to the Prime Minister calling for more protections for migrants, including for whistleblowers who report exploitation. They also want to criminalise wage theft.
We need to provide visa comfort and protection to migrant workers that are brave enough to take steps to recover their unpaid entitlements.
Lisa has lodged a complaint with the workplace regulator over being underpaid. Samuel Yang, ABC News.
And if this report has raised issues for you or anyone you know, help is available from Respect and Lifeline using the numbers on your screen. The new king will make his first visit to Northern Ireland as monarch later today as he continues to visit all corners of the United Kingdom. It could be a difficult trip as he comes face to face with Irish nationalist leaders who refuse to attend his proclamation. From Belfast, here's Europe correspondent Isabella Higgins.
This city has a somewhat complicated relationship with the Crown. Those who grew up in the time of the Troubles remember the tension between British Unionists and Irish nationalists.
August 75, the IRA attacked this pub here. So a lot of innocent people died in these various gun and bomb attacks.
Trevor Doherty is a taxi driver who shares his stories with tourists.
So we're moving across into the Catholic community.
Still, gates are locked every night to segregate the two communities.
You became accustomed to checkpoints on the roads. You became accustomed to seeing soldiers, armed soldiers, patrolling on the streets.
Murals across the city show strangers the struggles of the past. It's estimated more than 3,500 people were killed during the decades-long Troubles, including the Queen's cousin, who was assassinated by the Irish Republican Army. On a rare visit to Ireland in 2012, the Queen shook hands with the former leader of the IRA in what was described as an extraordinary moment of unity. This is one of the most recent murals put up in the city. It was to mark the Queen's historic Platinum Jubilee. It's now been turned into a makeshift memorial.
We were always brought up with the Queen, and whenever I heard the sad news, although we did expect it, but it still wasn't easy.
But Republicans from this traditional Irish pub are not convinced by the new monarch.
I think we're looking at the death rattle of the monarchy, to be honest with you. I don't think it can sustain itself.
During his trip to the country, King Charles will attend a memorial service here at St Anne's Cathedral before meeting with political leaders. But for the first time in this country's history, it's Sinn Féin, the Irish nationalist party, that hold the majority in Parliament. And those leaders chose not to attend his proclamation, saying they have no allegiance to the British Crown. The Sovereign's trip here will test him not just as a head of state, but as a diplomat.
And Isabella Higgins joins me now. Isabella, what's on the King's agenda in Belfast?
Well, Dan, he's expected to balance his duties as a new monarch as well as farewelling his mother. He's expected to arrive here in Belfast within the hour. He'll make his way through these streets and then he'll head to his royal residence, Hillsborough Castle. Now, there he is expected to meet the public as well as hold audiences with a number of dignitaries. Now, this trip could require some delicate diplomacy because for the first time in Northern Ireland's history, it's Sinn Féin, the Irish Nationalist Party, who hold the majority in Parliament. So the King is going to have to meet those leaders who chose not to attend his proclamation because they say they have no allegiance to the British Crown. But his day will end among friendlier crowds when he attends the memorial service at St Anne's Cathedral to remember and pay respects to his mother.
Isabella Higgins reporting from Belfast. King Charles III has been proclaimed as the new head of state of Papua New Guinea. A ceremony was held at the country's parliament to farewell Queen Elizabeth, who was affectionately known as Mrs. Quinn. Prime Minister James Marape and the Governor-General Sir Bob Dardé joined other dignitaries to mark the ascension of the new king. This Friday, the country celebrates its Independence Day and there will be a 96-gun salute for each year of the Queen's life. To finance now, the local market rose as confidence in the economy picked up. Here's Elise Morgan.
There's something strange happening in the economy. Business confidence is increasingly way out of step with consumers. Westpac's measure of consumer confidence rose for the first time since November this month, but it remains near historic lows. Westpac reports its strength in the labour market, which is preventing confidence from falling any further. And why wouldn't you be confident in keeping or getting a job? Here's the latest report from SEEK on ads versus applications. And while the number of job ads declined very slightly this month, they remain 31% higher than this time a year ago and well above pre-COVID levels. In good news for businesses, applications for those jobs on offer are continuing to pick up, if slowly. Taking a closer look at NAB's business confidence report, it remains very elevated with a pretty positive outlook because business is pumping. Here's a chart on capacity utilisation, or how much they're using their plant, labour and equipment. It's through the roof. So consumer confidence plumbing lows while business confidence is brimming. Both can't be right. The share market ticked higher again today. Star Entertainment shot up despite a damning report finding it unfit to hold its Sydney casino licence and that the board didn't have a clue. The market's saying, is that all? Shares in Link Group plummeted on fears UK regulator will scupper a $2.5 billion buyout, and Ramsay dropped because KKR has abandoned its $88 a share takeover because Ramsay wanted more. Overnight, Wall Street saw its fourth straight gain ahead of US inflation figures tonight, and the Australian dollar is back to where it was a fortnight ago. That's finance.
Canberra Raiders prop Joe Tapine has been named the club's best player of the season, winning his first Mel Meninga medal. As Tapine took out the Best and Fairest award, Brad Schneider was named the club's Rookie of the Year, while Hudson Young won the Coaches Award.
In a season that began with some devastating lows,
The Raiders' second half woes exploited by the Warriors.
building to massive highs,
A monumental upset. But Amy Park.
Joe Tapine has been a consistent source of brilliance.
Joe, he reaches out.
And last night, he was recognised for that.
You try and be that player everyone wants to play with, and I'm just glad that the boys recognised that was me this year.
The awards come after an incredible season, where after a tough start, the Raiders find themselves in an unexpectedly positive position. But Josh Papali'i says he always believed.
Personally, I knew we were going to make the finals. I just had that belief in that confidence in this team and what we can do as a squad.
The Raiders are now preparing for their next elimination final, but they'll be doing so without Adam Elliott, who suffered an injury against the Storm. Elliott will be replaced by Ryan Sutton, who at one point thought his Raiders career was over, and his teammates are confident he'll fit right back in.
We want to take that opportunity too. I don't think he's played finals here with us, and he's been here 3-4 years now, so to play his first final is definitely going to be excited.
Hates to lose Ryan Sutton, and I'm so glad if he does get the chance to come back. All the boys would be happy to have him back.
On Friday night, the Raiders take on Parramatta, who beat them in a tense battle way back in round 12. Isaac Naruzi, ABC News, Canberra.
The top trophies in this year's Emmy Awards have gone to media dynasty drama series Succession and the feel-good comedy series Ted Lasso. Held for the first time since the pandemic, the award ceremony had a special appearance from Oprah as well as The Simpsons. Murray Bartlett was the only Australian to win, snapping up the award for Best Supporting Actor in a Limited Series for his role in The White Lotus.
I just want to thank my mum all the way home in Australia for giving me the most wonderful foundation of unconditional love and inspiring me to believe that we can all do that for each other. So thank you, Mum, and thank you for this.
Thanks, Mum, indeed. To weather tonight, we have a spectacular view taken from Mount Stromlo this morning, just as the sun rose. This one from Sarah Breach from Wright, who added, "I love how the fog is hugging them along Glow River." So do we. Thanks for sharing it with us tonight. There was a low of 0 with frost this morning before a mostly sunny day and a top of 15. Mostly settled conditions across the region, a top of 13 in Goulburn and 9 in Cooma. More than 4 millimetres of rain fell in Perth today, mostly clear in Melbourne and Brisbane. Hobart partly cloudy, showers are possible in Sydney tonight. Low-level cold air cloud covers the southeast of the continent in the wake of a significant cold front. A band of mid-level cloud lies over eastern New South Wales. During the second half of the week, wet and unsettled weather looks set to return to another cold front, and associated low move east across southeastern Australia. Morning showers are possible in Sydney and Melbourne. A sunny morning and then late showers are forecast. Showers are possible in Perth. A shower or two is forecast in the east, mainly along the northern coast during the morning or early afternoon. Showers and the chance of a thunderstorm developing in the west in the late afternoon or evening, dry and partly cloudy elsewhere. A low of 0 with morning frost is forecast before a partly cloudy day and a top of 16. Sunrise at 6:01 and will set at 2 to 6. Ahead, Thursday's forecast of rain has been decreased to 6 to 15 millimetres, with 3 to 8 millimetres possible on Friday. On Saturday, up to 6 millimetres is possible. A millimetre of rain is expected on Sunday. And that's the latest from the Canberra newsroom. I'm Dan Borscher. Great to be with you. Do stay with us now for 7:30 with Sarah Ferguson. Yara, good night.